During this never-ending lockdown, I looked back on some of the games that I've had but never really touched. One of those games was Dragon Marked for Death. At first I was pretty excited for this game, although that was mostly just because I thought the Gunvolt DLC looked cool. But when I actually started playing it, I wasn't very interested. But now that I've given it a second chance, it really changed my mind. I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about this game online, so I figured I'd give it some attention here. What is Dragon Marked for Death, you might be wondering? Dragon Marked for Death is an action platforming game with some RPG elements made by Inti Creates, the same studio behind Gunvolt and the Blaster Master reboot. You are one of the last two surviving members of the Dragonblood clan after it got genocided, and you want revenge. So you go to the royal capital, and believe it or not, the king wants nothing to do with you because you're a nobody. To fix your nobody status, you go to the bar and take on odd jobs. These odd jobs are the levels of the game. There's a good amount of variety in the levels. You're not always killing a boss monster like in Mega Man. Sometimes you just have to gather enough of an item, and other times instead of a boss you're thrown into a death pit where you have to kill a bunch of enemies. When you start the game there are 4 characters you can choose from, although thanks to DLC and updates there's an additional 2 you can unlock. The first character you can pick is the Empress, and she's my personal favorite. She basically turns the game into Mega Man 05 because her main means of attacking is getting up and personal with her sword. She also gets an arm blaster that can even inflict status ailments depending on which element you're attuned to. Personally, I went for poison because I like the extra damage from poison, and your poison shots leave it behind a poison cloud that deals even more damage. She also gets a grappling hook, which isn't very useful, but when it does come in handy. And she can also do a really powerful downward slash with her dragon arm, which is even faster if you do it mid-air. Overall, she's really strong and basically your DPS character, and she's my personal favorite once again. Next up is the Warrior, and he's the character I actually started the game with. The Warrior is slow, but he packs a punch. He also has some good vitality, as well as a force field that slowly heals him over time. He can also tackle things, but similarly to the Empress's grappling hook, this is mostly just used to push boxes around. Although unlike the grappling hook, this is considered an attack and it can deal damage. Unfortunately though, the Warrior's slowness really holds him back in my opinion. There's a good bit of delay between hitting the attack button and landing an axe swing, and if you're not careful, you're going to be hit a lot because of it. Apparently he's been compared to the hammer in Monster Hunter, but I haven't played the hammer in Monster Hunter, so I'm afraid I can't tell you how good of a comparison that is. Next up is Shinobi, who kind of plays similarly to Copen from the Gunvolt series. Shinobi's plan of attack is to dash into the enemy and then unleash a flurry of undodgeable attacks with his knives and shurikens. If you get your combo count high enough, you can end it with a dragon kick to really do some damage. Shinobi's also the most mobile of all the 4 characters. He can air dash a few times, he has a double jump, and he can even wall jump. I haven't played much as Shinobi, but he seems promising from what I've seen. I've heard he gets more DPS than the Empress, but I'm not at the point right now where I can judge that. Finally, there's the Witch, and I'm not a fan of her at all. Unlike the other characters, she deals mostly with magical attacks. This means that unless you want to use your basic magical bullet or you want to summon a familiar, you'll have to stand still, and cant the spell, and cant any possible upgrades you want, and then press a second button to actually use your attack. You should see the problem with this in a fast-paced action platforming game. One thing I'm not sure I mentioned yet is that this game actually has multiplayer. Whether in person or online, you and 3 other people can team up and take down the missions you're assigned. Unfortunately, the online servers are kind of dead right now. I only managed to play 2 games in multiplayer, and even then those 2 games are just me and the actual host. Still, it's pretty fun to go at those missions with other people. A lot more fun than solo, but you're going to be playing mostly solo nowadays unless this game suddenly sees a resurgence. Let's cover the gameplay more in depth. Like I said earlier, to start a level you go to the bar and take on a mission. There's a decent amount of variety in the missions, and while there aren't that many levels, each mission takes place in a certain part of the level, and section off the other parts, so most of the time it doesn't feel like you're retreading the same ground. Each character has 1 or 2 weapons they can equip. Sometimes these weapons really change up the game, but other times it mostly just seems like aesthetics. The Empress can equip either swords or swords, and it's basically 2 different characters because of it. The Warrior, on the other hand, can equip either axes or greatswords, and the only real difference I notice is that his tackle attack is either 1 big hit or 3 weaker hits. You can take 2 weapons with you on a mission, and you can switch between them whenever you want. You also have 2 slots for accessories. These accessories can help you in a variety of ways, from simply buffing your stats to increasing your movement speed, and some even let you survive attacks that would one-shot you. Weapons and accessories have a level attached to them, as does the player. The player's level works as one would expect. As it goes up, you become stronger. If you try and equip a weapon that's a higher level than you are, the game will let you, but it won't let you get the bonus effect that it might have, and you'll also get hit with an accuracy penalty. Meanwhile, you can equip accessories that are a higher level than your period. You also have 8 slots for items. These mainly come in 3 flavors: healing, status restoring, and buffing. As a personal tip, I spend all 8 slots on potions plus 1, which are enough to fully heal my character, and as well as give me a regeneration buff. Later on in the game, you can start to unlock magical weapons. These weapons really open up how you can build your character. Magical weapons deal magic damage instead of physical damage. This might seem disastrous on your ideally physical build, but they also provide a hefty chunk of intelligence, so if you just want to test them out, you won't be doing scratch damage. They lose the ability to randomly crit, but if you attack an enemy with an elemental weakness to your weapon, you'll always crit. On the other hand, enemies that are strong against your weapon's element will resist your attacks and become a real pain to bring down. Furthermore, while it might just be the magic weapon I had, the Rune Analace, these weapons also seem to be generous with their stat boost. In addition to the large amount of intelligence, the sword also gave me a good amount of HP. This creates a dilemma you'll have to solve for yourself. Do you reset your build and take full advantage of your new magical weapon, or will you stick with your physical weapon? With proper knowledge of what enemies you'll be facing in each map, being able to always crit a certain element is invaluable. Take this boss for instance. Normally he causes me a lot of trouble, but thanks to the magical weapon, and my level advantage, but ignore that for the moment, I can tear him to shreds with my magic sword. Let's go back to the levels themselves. Most of them are pretty standard. You got your plains, woods, mountains, etc. My least favorite level was the tower, which is unfortunate because aesthetically it's one of my favorites. Remember how I said it usually doesn't feel like you're treading the same ground all the time? The tower is why I said usually. Every level in the tower has these elevator sections, and every time these elevators are missing their power source. Instead of just going from point A to point B, you have to search around the tower you can access to find the power sources, usually 2 or 3 times in a level. When you consider how the difficulty settings work, which I'll get into later, you'll realize you'll spend a lot of time messing around with these elevators. While I mentioned before that most levels section off the parts you play, this isn't always the case. I'm not sure if it's just the DLC levels, but some areas give you a massive location to explore. These levels ended up being my personal favorite. There are only 3 of these areas in the game: a tomb, a castle, and a labyrinth, but they're by far the most interesting levels. Take the first quest in the castle as an example. Your goal is to hunt down the boss, who can spawn in multiple rooms. You need an item held at the center of the castle to even harm the boss, so you end up having to dodge the boss whenever you encounter it. It's quite hectic, and it makes for one of the more memorable missions in the game. Speaking of the game being hectic, I should bring up the difficulty. While it fluctuates depending on the character, overall the game is somewhat challenging. Empress and Shinobi are definitely easier to play than Warrior and Witch, but you'll want a balanced party for multiplayer, and if you want the best ending you'll have to end up using all the characters anyway. The difficulty is compounded by the retry bar. There are no lives in Dragon Marks for death. Instead, every death eats up some of the retry bar. In single player it always eats up a quarter, while in multiplayer the stronger you are the more it eats up. The game is nice enough to revive you at full health whenever you job, but in exchange there are no checkpoints anywhere in the game. If you lose all of your bar, the mission fails and you get kicked out. While you lose any items you found, you fortunately get to keep any money you picked up and experience you gained, and you even get your consumed items back, so no defeat is absolutely devastating. Let's go over some of the things I'm not a big fan of. The main problem I have with this game is unlocking difficulty levels of missions. To unlock a new difficulty level, you have to beat a mission at the current highest level. For example, let's say you have one mission at level 10. Once you beat that, you'll unlock the same mission at level 20. This seems fine on paper, but in execution doesn't work out so well. It would be better if these levels unlocked once you reached an appropriate level. That way you don't have to grind easy missions you have no reason to do other than as a stepping stone to the real content. Curiously, the devs must have realized this. One update they released a boss replay level that unlocks based off this system, but they didn't update the other levels to work this way too. It's not too big a deal, as you'll be strong enough to dab on the enemies in these easy levels, but it can get annoying. The black market is also a bit of a problem. Depending on which character you're using, it can really break the game. The black market offers rare items in exchange for drops you can find. This is where you can find the potions I mentioned earlier, but you can also get special weapons here, and this is where the problems really start. The Empress has it the best. You can easily get your hands on an extremely powerful sword that's only level 5. How powerful is it? It took killing the final boss to find a technically stronger sword, and even then the level 5 sword is still better thanks to its better stat boost and the other sword's prohibited level requirements. The Warrior has a similar axe you can get, but for some odd reason it's level 20. Again, not a major complaint, but something to bring up. Overall, I really like Dragon Mark for Death. It's basically the Mega Man 005 we never got. Each character brings their own unique mechanics, and I imagine it will be really fun to join up and take on the harder content. But even single player is pretty enjoyable. Digitally, it's only $15, although that also only gets you 2 of the 4 characters. I'd really like to see more people check out this game. Despite coming out a while ago, it's still getting updates, so who knows, maybe something big will come up. If you like Dragon Marks for Death, or at least played it, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe.